everybody. It is Wes Hagen, your favorite day drinker, and it is the 15th. I guess that would make it the Monday of June, Monday, June 15th, 2020. And so glad we're all here day drinking together. So we're going to have a really exciting show today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming guests with some incredible news coming up. I'm also doing a Zoom tasting on Thursday at 9 in the morning, talk about day drinking. We're going to be talking about, I've somehow been chosen to be on the Icons of California Winemaking panel for Psalm Journal and the Tasting Panel magazines. So at 9 o'clock, there will be a number of different winemakers. I think I'm the only winemaker from Santa Barbara County, but there'll be some Napa folks, and there'll be some Sonoma folks, and probably some Paso folks. So I'll be hopefully representing for all the beautiful wines that we make here in Santa Maria and in Santa Barbara County. So very, very exciting about that. And then today, what are we going to be talking about? Oh, and Tommy and Josh, and you guys are awesome. The rosé sold out this weekend? You mean all of it? Or just the 5 or 10 cases that we're getting? And Nick's in the house, and Tommy's in the house, and Josh is in the house. And Josh, we need to communicate about when you're coming up, because I want to talk about that and make sure if there's a chance that we can make the opportunity to see you when you're up here taking your W set or your Quartermaster Psalms. That would be fantastic. Oh, thank you, Tommy. I think it really, really shows beautiful, and it is the end of Saturday was National Rosé Day. So to be honest, I drank all of my rosé too. So I was considering, because we did a little bit more Smashberry on Friday, I was considering doing the J. Wilkes, but now that that it's sold out in the tasting room, I'm pretty sure there's still like 80 cases or so in the warehouse, but I'll have to check. So I think we're in pretty good shape, and I am going to be talking to Jerry to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to taste and to enjoy those J. Wilkes wines at the tasting room whenever you have the opportunity. So I appreciate that. Oh, she is drinking a Bordeaux blend from Maryland with some steak, mashed potatoes, and salad. That sounds wonderful. I grilled some pork loin this weekend, kind of low and slow over some mesquite and some red oak. And it was about the best pork loin I've ever had. Just dry rub and then lacquered it at the very end with some really nice Kinder's spicy barbecue sauce. Yeah, it's got those nice strawberry notes. I always, watermelon, especially like that now and later. Now and laters are probably before your day, but kind of like a Jolly Rancher kind of watermelon aroma. Definitely has that juiciness that I love. Oh, nice. Christy's in the house. I'm glad you got home in a reasonable hour. That's fantastic. And happy Monday to you, Christy. So stoked you guys are here. So as you know, I'm no longer doing the show on my personal page. Couple things just in case you're interested, and most of you, because you are with me almost every night, and I thoroughly appreciate all 8 of you in the house right now. That's Tommy, Christy, Michelle, Josh, Nick. I said Tommy. So thank all of you for coming on and watching. If you have not gone over to my personality page, Wes Hagen, which is Wes for Wine or at Wes for Wine, feel free to go over there, because that's where I'm basically posting all of my Facebook stuff. It's not automatically directed to my personal page. So personality page, would love for you guys to go over there and follow me there. And also we need some more followers over on the YouTube page. So that's J. Wilkes Wines. If you search either J. Wilkes Wines or Miller Family Wine Company, all of these videos are produced, tightened a little bit, and then put up on those YouTube pages for perpetuity. So every video that we're doing, as long as I didn't mess up, Naomi Zendejas, thank you, Naomi, if you're watching this and doing this tomorrow, Naomi will take care of it, and she will put it together, and she will make sure we have all that. But as we always do, thank you so much for being here. And Denise, I'm so glad you're here as well. And then Nick's always got good questions. Have you ever tried utilizing oak adjuncts for smoking meats? Awesome flavors. I do all the time. In fact, it's interesting because we used to save our barrel staves that were a little bit too old maybe to make furniture, and we would cut them up into maybe 8-inch steaks, and then we would leave them in a bucket of water by our barbecue and by our our pizza oven, and we would put those wet French oak staves in our pizza oven or in our barbecue when we were smoking or making pizza, and it would give it this beautiful French oak character that would match and make a beautiful bridge for the French oak character in the wines that we were serving. So I've not used the oak chips. I normally just buy whatever chips are available, either at Home Depot or wherever I'm shopping for my barbecue stuff. If they have, a bag of, I'm kind of into pecan right now. I think smoking and using pecan produces some of the best flavor. I like apple. I like orange. I like obviously pole oak, which is traditionally used in some of the greatest Austin and Texas barbecue. Mesquite burns hot, burns quick, but sure does a nice job as far as focusing the flavors of the mesquite into the wood in a very short amount of time. So that was all well and good. And Michelle is back in the house. So we really do appreciate that, Michelle. And thank you again, Michelle, for sharing my invite for tonight. So what are we doing tonight? Well, first of all, we're drinking. So glad you guys are here. I've been watching a lot of other winemakers doing these things, and damn it, none of these people are drinking. Maybe it's my problem, but I would just say if you're going to do a show on drinking and you're expecting your folks to come in and enjoy some wine with you, it would be a very good idea to get some wine inside your belly. So that's all well and good. So besides us in about 5 minutes talking a little bit about rosé, talking a little bit about Grenache and Syrah, and why in the world this Smashberry rosé has like 3% Chardonnay, and I'll explain exactly why. And then Nick is talking, and John, welcome. Zucchini Parmesan, grilled burgers with Smashberry Red. Yeah, the zucchini Parmesan, when I tell my wife, she's going to be like, now, yes, do it. We're trying to find low-carb ways to have delicious sort of comfort food. I think the biggest struggle I have in my life right now is not to cook what I know I cook all the time. I'm breaking out my Indian cookbook and really looking to see how I can cook stuff that I've never cooked before. So dal is this week. I'm going to be trying to create a black dal, which is a very specific dish from Mumbai or Bombay that uses lentils, black lentils, and creates this. It's that beautiful sort of dark lentil stew that you see generally at Indian restaurants, and it's normally kind of sopped up with some nice naan or some garlic naan. I don't even know if garlic naan exists in India. I'm assuming it's probably like chips and salsa. It doesn't exist in Mexico. But it's going to be delicious, and I do think that maybe Indonesian, Chinese, Japanese, Indian, and sort of Near Eastern and Eastern cuisine is sort of what I find delivers the most flavor and happiness to me. Hardest thing about changing your diet and being a little bit more focused on health and low carbs is you have to stop thinking of food as you need delicious things every time you eat, to this is fuel for my body and it's going to help me live 10 years longer. So that's kind of where I am right now. So I hope you guys are all enjoying some delicious wine, and we'll bring in our Instagram folks here in about 3 or 4 minutes. Brett, welcome. I'm finishing up a couple other writing projects. I have not forgotten about about the criteria of your short fiction, and kind of have an idea what I want to write it about, but we'll definitely make it happen. And Bob's in the house, back from Oregon and Washington visiting wineries. Portland and Seattle look awful. Yeah, and it's definitely a challenging time for those areas, and areas that are traditionally shown a lot of verve for political discourse. So that's one way of putting it. So I hope everything ends up being safe for all my friends in Portland and my friends in Seattle too. 2 of my favorite cities, definitely. And then Denise, thank you. Milkstreet.com for ethnic recipes. You will love Christopher Kimball if you're not a fan already. Ooh, I'm writing this down. Christopher Kimball and milkstreet.com. And that will be funny because I will probably use it for lots of recipes, even though I don't really consume that much dairy. I'm not a huge fan, except maybe a little cream in a sauce, or once in a while a little cream in my coffee, if I need just a little something extra in the morning. Rosé is just such a wonderful grape. I'm just getting so ready to want to talk about rosé. Cool. Well, let me get this all nice and set up. You guys should probably go get yourself a drink, and I would say here in about a minute or so, I will fire up. Well, I'll just do it now. What the heck? Let's do it. Let's bring in the Instagram folks. The gates are open. All right, welcome Instagram, and of course, welcome back to all my Facebook friends. You are with Wes Hagen. I am Wes Hagen, and we are day drinking. And it is it's the 15th day, Monday of June, in the craziest year I've ever lived, and I lived in 1969, barely. I saw the landing of the moon. My parents said that they held my little 4-month-old self up to the sort of black and white, radiation master screen, so I could watch it and say that I had watched it. But yeah, crazy year. But here we are, right in the middle of June. The year's half over, and we're hopefully healthy. If you're not healthy and watching this, I hope you feel much better. We've sort of decided as a family that I'm immunosuppressed. I'm a type 1 diabetic, which gives me a much higher mortality rate if I come down with the COVID. I don't probably have the greatest lungs in the history of 51-year-old Caucasian men. So I'm doing everything I can to sequester and to stay as careful as I possibly can. That includes coming to you Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mondays talking about general wine education. Wednesdays talking a little bit about more advanced winemaking and maybe even wine growing philosophies as part of that. And then on Fridays, we have a guest. And our guest this week is going to be John Crandall. And John Crandall is the winemaker for Ballard Lane. Many of your, one of your favorite sort of everyday drinking wines that are, about $13 in the store, and they really deliver. Most of those wines are getting 90 to 92 points in Somm Journal tasting panel, Wine Enthusiast. So I think they're fantastic values, and almost all of them have some type of an accolade about their values. So John Crandall's going to come in and talk about something that is not as sexy as making Romani Conti, not as sexy as making First Growth Bordeaux, not as sexy as being, a famous French winemaker that makes $2,000 bottles. He's going to come in and talk about the best way and some excellent practices and what you guys should know about someone who makes wines for value. So what is it? What's the difference between a $10 bottle and a $100 bottle? Is there a lot of difference? And I think it's going to be a really good conversation. So looking forward to that. That's Friday at 5 o'clock. And then as I was mentioning, on Thursday at 9 in the morning, I will be posting a Zoom link. If I haven't already, you can always go to either Wes for Wine at Facebook, which is the Wes Hagen personality page, or you can go to the J. Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara Facebook page and get some more information about this tasting. But I will be participating as an icon of California winemaking, which besides maybe the icon I put on my texts, that's as close to an icon as I've probably come. I work hard. I love Santa Barbara wine. I don't know if I've earned that title yet, but fortunately we have a fantastic PR maven. A couple PR mavens here at the Miller Family Wine Company, and they got me in. So probably I'm a token Santa Barbara winemaker, and I'm used to it. So that's all well and good. So looking forward to that on Thursday, and then Friday, John Crandall at 5 o'clock. A really good discussion about winemaking from a guy who's been making wine for a lot of different people, a lot of places, and how lucky we are at the Miller Family Wine Company to have a guy that's making such amazingly wonderful wines at Ballard Lane. So let's taste this wine. So Saturday was National Rosé Day. I really hope that all of you did your what the government wanted you to, which, because it was National Rosé Day, if you did not drink rosé all day Saturday, I'm sorry, but you're not patriotic. No, I'm just kidding. It's all well and good, but what I wanted to do is one last time, and we didn't really talk a lot about all the different wines under the Miller Family Wine Company for Rosé Day on Friday, because we did talk about rosé and I did taste this wine, but I wanted to just spend a little time talking about this wine, and then we're going to do something where I'm going to save you $650. And I honestly mean that, because I'm going to teach you guys how to fish where the fish that I'm going to teach you to catch are usually $650 per person. And I'm going to teach you to do something amazing, and that is I'm going to teach you guys to do a UC Davis reference style tasting exactly like you would do in John Buchenstein's class with the help of Dr. Ann Noble. Dr. Ann Noble wrote the original tasting wheel, the Ann Noble's sort of reference wheel for flavors and tastes within wine. You've seen it. It's a big circle with a lot of different colors on it that's been redone for beer and whiskey, and she basically invented the aroma wheel. and retired as a result because you're supposed to give her money every time you use it and every time you buy it. So what they do in their class is this reference tasting, which is basically breaking down a neutral wine and adding various ingredients and separating those ingredients into various glasses so that when we're tasting and smelling wine, we're tasting the actual essences of the fruits we're trying to describe. It's a little confusing, and I'm going to spend at least a half an hour talking about it tonight. So don't worry. I'm going to teach you. Have you ever asked yourself, why can't I describe flavors in wine the same way that I could describe flavors if I was tasting them directly from an apple or something? So if you had an apple and I cut it up in front of you and I put it under your nose and you're wearing a blindfold, going a little 9.5 week style, excuse me while I get a little freaky, I would hold this apple under your nose and you would smell it. And 100 times out of 100, you say, that's an apple. So what the hell? So why can't you smell apple in wine? We will discover that. I will tell you the secret as soon as we're done tasting a little bit of this delicious Smashberry Rosé. So as far as the Smashberry Rosé, we're talking about 77% Grenache, 20% Syrah, 3% Chardonnay, and that Chardonnay, part of it was a little bit of residual. So that Chardonnay was not bone dry, so when we added the Chardonnay into this blend, it gave the wine just the tiniest little bit of sweetness. Up to 3 grams, and remember a gram is about the weight of a large paper clip. So whenever I hear gram, I hear paper clip, because unfortunately I grew up in a world of ounces and pounds, which is a ridiculous way. There's only 3 countries in the world that still use our imperial system, and it's like Myanmar, the United States, and like Algeria or something. So I mean, come on, let's get into the modern world and start using a metric system. But anyways, the wine in here has about almost 2.5-3 grams of residual sugar, which is right on the edge of where a great palate, almost a super palate, can taste residual sugar. So why would you add residual sugar back to a wine when you can't even taste it? And the answer is breadth. The difference between a wine that is bone effing dry, like 0.0% residual sugar, 0 grams per liter, that is almost impossible, first of all, because there's usually non-disaccharide sugars and other non-fermentable sugars within a wine that will leave residual sugar at about 1 to 1.5 grams per liter. And that'll usually be the driest wine that you can find. Under 1% is incredibly rare unless you're using Saccharomyces biennis, which is a different yeast strain that's used quite often in Champagne. Champagne has such low pH, such high acidity that they need basically a yeast that won't quit. And so that biennis is, you might have heard of it if you're a winemaker, is Prix de Mousse. But biennis are yeasts that really just don't quit, and they can ferment certain types of non-disaccharide sugars that Saccharomyces cerevisiae can't. So lovely thing about this wine is it tastes bone dry, but it has this beautiful richness and juiciness. And when you add a gram or 2 of residual sugar back to the wine, the juiciness becomes profound, and the juiciness leaps from the glass. The sugar definitely impacts the aroma and the aromatic potential of the wine. And so generally what we'll do is we'll run our wines to bone dry, or as close to bone dry as we can, and then we will find some way to blend a little bit of sugar back in, not using sugar, beet sugar or cane sugar. No. We want to use filtered grape juice called a moutet. And we've talked about this before. The moutet is added to the wine, before we would generally, at blending, but before we are going to filter the wine. And then so when we filter it, we make sure that we remove any yeast. So because there's a small amount of sugar in the wine that could theoretically be fermented, that we make sure when it goes into the bottle, it's going to be safe, because we don't want it to be sparkling unless we mean it to be sparkling. Now, I made a rosé back in 2007 at Clos Pepe from Pinot Noir, and unfortunately I got sick when we filtered it and bottled it, and it got filtered and bottled without me there, and I'm not saying who my intern was that year, but it was not done perfectly correctly, and unfortunately it re-fermented in the bottle, but not so much that it exploded. It just had this beautiful effervescence, like half as much bubbles as a sparkling wine or a champagne, and it was absolutely, we called it Basque style, because the Basques very commonly will make a rosé that they bottle sort of like a pet nat, petulant natural. So you're basically making a wine that has some bubbles. Did you mean to make those bubbles? I always said, because the one was so good, it sold out really quickly because it was only $18 a bottle. But I said, it's $18 a bottle because I didn't mean for it to have bubbles. If I meant for it to have bubbles, it would be $50. And it was a great little funny sort of sales point to it. But, rosé, obviously the color is going to come from how much skin contact. So when you're producing a rosé, the question is, how much color are you going to get from the grapes if you just stuck them into the press and pressed the juice off as if it were making a white wine? Do you want to crush and destem the grapes, take the grapes and let the skin sit in the juice for an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, half a day, overnight, maybe one day, maybe 2 days, depending on if you don't get any color. Say you're picking Grenache from a very warm climate. We could probably macerate Grenache from Paso Robles probably for 3 days and end up with not much more color than this. So it's all about like Clos Pepe Pinot Noir. If I let it sit overnight on the skins, we would have a red wine. The color was intense even the day after. You could pull some juice right out of a grape fermenter just the day after in cold soak, and it would already look like red wine. So it depends on the fruit you're using, how much color compounds, the anthocyanins, the phenolic and polyphenolic compounds that are going to add color to the grapes. Do you want to just squish them and make it as juicy as you want? The key is for me to a rosé, you want some color, you want it to be beautiful, you just don't want tannin. I think if you drink a rosé and you get that tannin in your mouth, you kind of want to, why wouldn't I just be, drinking a light-bodied red wine? And it also begs the question, my Axis Mundi Syrah Grenache blend, which was mostly Grenache, a little bit of Syrah that I made with my wife for 4 or 5 years at Clos Pepe as a second label, we would only leave it on the skins for 4 days, and then we would press it. So was it a rosé or was it a light-bodied red wine? The answer is yes, whatever you want it to be. It defied any type of sort of criteria in the sense that I felt like, with everyone being experimental in wine, really you're going to go to orange wine, you're going to make natural wine, you're going to make pet nat without ever really experimenting where the line is between rosé and red. I think there's a lot of experimentation that we can do as wine drinkers and winemakers to try to find rosés that are macerated, that are longer macerated, to see if that's what we want. Because what I found, if you get it sort of halfway between a red wine and a rosé, it's a perfect red wine to serve chilled in the summer to people that say they don't like rosé. So this was a really important thing 10 years ago when a lot of people didn't like to be seen with rosé in their glass because dry rosé was fairly unknown to people who don't drink a lot of wine. So anyone in a wine bar, anyone would see you drinking pink wine, they would assume maybe that was some white Zin. And as I normally admit on the show at least once, I have no problem with white Zinfandel. It saved so many old Zin vines up north. Zin was getting to the point where no one was drinking red Zinfandel, sort of in the late 80s, early 90s. And as a result, when white Zinfandel came on the scene, suddenly the price of Zinfandel doubled and then it tripled from about $200 up to about $600 a ton. So the people that were ready to rip out Zinfandel in California left Zinfandel in the vineyard. And so white Zin saved one of the most important things we have in California, which are these old Zinfandel vines. So I think that's really important to understand. But I made a white Zin from Santa Rita Hills grapes that were given to me, some Zinfandel that was kind of hurting out at a ranch that is now named something different that I won't bring up. I don't think that Zinfandel is there anymore, but it was 22-year-old Zinfandel in the Santa Rita Hills, but it never got over 1920 bricks, very rarely. And so I went and picked it, made some rosé, and it was okay. I called it Van Grief because it gave me some problems during fermentation. I ended up making some sparkling Van Grief, some still Van Grief, and some off-dry Van Grief. It was okay, but just the process of learning about it gave it some seriousness and gave me some thoughts about what craft white Zin tastes like, which basically I don't drink white Zin except for one reason, and that is if I'm at my local little sushi joint down the street. They don't have a very wide wine list, but they do have some decent corporate, big winery white Zin. And I find white Zin matches gorgeously with a spicy tuna roll. So if I'm going to be doing spicy tuna roll, maybe some pork cutlet with, or something that's very, very spicy, I find the slight sweetness and the lower alcohol of white Zinfandel makes a beautiful sushi wine. So there you go. I'm a fancy winemaker and I drink white Zin. I feel like I'm in some sort of like 12-step thing right now. My name is Wes, and I drink white Zin from time to time. It's been a while because I haven't really eaten out in a while, and when we get the sushi in, I just drink good rosé. Awesome. So I hope you enjoyed that. So a little insight into rosé. So I would say in general, white zin would have about 20 grams of residual sugar. This wine has 2.5. So almost 1/10 the level of sugar that you would get in a white zin. So again, there's no reason why a little bit of sweetness in a wine shouldn't turn you off. It can be delicious. I try to have an open mind about it. And when we drink rosé, it's absolutely delicious. I love this one because it's low alcohol, it's crisp, it's bright, and it screams session. It screams like, again, I kind of feel like if a rosé goes over 13%, you kind of missed it. It's like you can't make a lager and double dry hop it and think it's going to be, you can call it a dry hopped lager. I get it, but that's not really what lager's about. Lager's about crispy. Lager's about cut. It's about crunchiness. So is rosé. Rosé should be clean, crisp, bright. And I don't want to say, get on my bully pulpit and start saying this is what rosé should be. But what I love about rosé, low alcohol, crisp, bright, fairly dry, and a wine to drink with food or without food. It works almost equally well on both sides. So that's a little insight I have into rosé. If you have any questions about rosé, no problem at all. And misclick, no problem. I click things that are wrong all the time. So I thoroughly understand. And I'm going to go back. Hold on. There we go. Excellent. I apologize. I just pushed the wrong button on my phone. I'm just looking to see who we have before I go on. Armin, and it looks like we have the Peter and Mary on in beautiful Chino Hills. Wine Chick 7 is here. Make sure you get Wine Chick 1 and 6 next time. We love all of you to be here. And Karen, the Dead Lioness, is here. Solo Syrah, love that. Chef George and the Gottliebs are in the house. Hope those Syrah vines down in Camarillo are looking beautiful. We make some beautiful, beautiful home wine back there for sure. So what I want to talk about is how to host a reference tasting. So a reference tasting is, simply put, a way to teach your nose and olfactory senses as a human being how to delineate various smells behind the white noise of wine. So remember when we first started, I said, hey, if I cut open an apple and put it under your nose and ask yourself, hey, what did I just put under your nose? You're going to say, dude, that's an apple. So if I have a wine that has a lot of apple kind of aromas and esters, and I put that wine under your nose and you're like, oh, it smells like something. What is it? What is it? What is it? Why can't you smell the apple? Because basically on a molecular basis, what you're smelling is the ester that comes from an apple and the fermentative aroma that produces the same ester. Molecularly, there's really no difference. So why can't we smell apple in wine? Because the irony is fermentation of grapes produce tons and tons of esters, and these esters really are indistinguishable from the actual chemical esters that exist in other fruits. So the miracle is when you ferment Pinot Noir, you can actually produce the ester of ripe Bing cherry. And you can actually smell that and go, oh, there's cherry in that Pinot Noir. But if you don't know how to smell through the wine, so the idea of a reference tasting is to teach yourself and your friends and your cohort and anyone else you invite over how to smell through a wine and what I call the vinous noise. So wine smells like wine. So here's the key. The first thing you have to do is choose a wine for this process, for this tasting, that doesn't smell like anything. That just smells like white wine, smells like red wine. So I've done a lot of, and the problem is most boxed wine has about between 5 and 7 grams of residual sugar. The ones that I tend to use traditionally for these tastings, and I've done these probably 12 times for my classes at Allen Hancock College. I've done it as a fundraiser for an ex-military gentleman who needed a service dog for his PTSD, and we raised $4,000. And if Phil's on, normal viewer, he came to this. I think he might have even come out from the East Coast to do this reference tasting and to help buy this military veteran the most gorgeous, cute golden lab, golden retriever that you've ever seen, who's named Hero. So there you go. So this is, again, to sit in on this tasting at the University of California, Davis is $650. What do you get for $650? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come into a room and you're basically going to see more bottles, vials, and glasses than you can ever imagine. This process definitely is going to require a lot of homework, a lot of prep, and quite a few wine glasses. My guess, to do this the way I have it set up, you would need about 40 to 50 wine glasses. Now, the thing about this is you can usually, if you have a large table where this is set up and it's not in a classroom setting, generally if you have a big table, I like to keep this tasting to about 20 people. And I'll explain why. And that is we are not going to allow everybody to pour their own glasses of these reference samples. There's only going to be one central glass of each reference. So for instance, and I'm going to start telling you how to do this. So we've got red wine, white wine, faults, tasting samples with residual sugar, and with acid. So this is what we're going to do. I want you to get, let's just say you have 25 glasses and you're going to add, well, you're not even going to go there yet. You're going to basically have at least one big box of Peter Vella Chablis and one big box of Peter Vella Burgundy or Hardy Burgundy or Mountain Burgundy, whatever it says, as long as it says Burgundy and it's Peter Vella. The wines are a little bit drier than some of the other box wine, and I prefer them. Now, this is what you're going to do. Let's start with red wine. Really quickly, these are, and I put a picture of this cheat sheet on my Facebook pages. So you don't have to write this down or take notes. You can go to my Facebook page, steal this, grab a screenshot of it and print it out. It's on an 8.5 by 11 page and it's easy to transfer into a word processor or whatever and print this out. So I'm not gonna read off the whole thing because it's pretty significant. But what I want you to do, let's talk about the first 10 or so. Cherry, dried cherry. Raspberry, fresh. Strawberry, fresh. Blackberry, fresh. Blueberry, fresh. Cigar tobacco. A prune. A fig. Bacon. Cranberry, French oak, American oak. Raisins, licorice. Red licorice, black licorice. Rose petals. Eucalyptus, dark chocolate, plum. So these are the things I want to teach you guys how to smell in wine. So what you're going to do is you are going to, let's start with dried cherries. So you're going to buy some dried cherries that are in a little bag, says dried cherries. Pour some out, and you're going to use a number of cutting boards, and you're going to be washing the cutting board extremely carefully to take it back to a perfectly neutral aroma. Because if you're cutting everything on the same board, you're going to start getting some confusing stuff, especially if you have a little like green bell pepper or something, and then you throw it in, start chopping cherries on top of it. Okay, so you've got your dried cherries. I want you to take a chef's knife, and you can either put it in a food processor, some of the nuts and stuff, you can put it in what's it called, like a coffee grinder, anything like that, herbs, same way. And I want you to, whatever you need to do to basically chop that stuff up or macerate it into the tiniest little bits you can. Then I want you to pick it up, throw it in a wine glass, and then put like 3 ounces, like 2 fingers, maybe a little bit more, maybe 2.5 to 3 ounces of red wine on top of the cherry. I want you to swirl that glass, and then I want you to cover that glass with saran wrap. Put it in the fridge. You're going to need almost an entire fridge to do this right. Then you're going to grab your fresh raspberries. You're going to cut them up as much as you possibly can, put them in a glass, put 3 ounces of wine in them, stir it, swirl it, put some saran wrap on it. Do that with bacon, do that with fig. The key is to get it as finely chopped as possible to allow that flavor in. Now, if I left bacon in a glass and I put it on a table the next day and someone came up and was thinking, they're going to look in the glass and they're going to see bacon. So I like 24 hours, but 12 hours is probably fine. In the fridge, letting it go. And then what I do is I take a very nice fine sieve or, a nice, just like a metal strainer, very, very fine metal strainer. And then I will take a clean glass, make sure it's clean, doesn't smell like anything, because people are really, really going to be smelling these glasses. and then I want you to put it over a clean glass, and then I want you to pour it in, tap it out, rinse it, make sure that sieve is the screen is completely clean before you go again. So then you're going to sieve your cherries out of your red wine. The wine's going to be a little cloudy. It might have a little bit of particulate matter in it. Don't worry, as long as you can't identify it. That's the key. So when someone picks up that glass, they can't see any of the fruit that's in it. They're going to swirl it, and if they're lucky, they're going to be like, ooh, cherry. So then they're going to have this, which you probably can't see, but that's okay because it's on my Facebook page. It's basically a matching list. So all of the things I described on the red wine side, black pepper, canned beetroot, coffee, dark roast, jam, blueberry jam, plum, all these things have been done. And then we put them around randomly all over the table. And for those 20 things, everyone basically goes from white wine to red wine and goes around the table. I randomly match the letter, or like W1, W2, white wine 1, white wine 2, R1, R2, all the way through R20, R25. You go through and you basically have this sheet and a pen on a clipboard. You go around, you take a glass, you smell it, you put it back. You do not stick your nose all the way or touch your nose to the glass. In a COVID situation, I guess this gets a little bit more complicated, but the idea is everyone shares the same glasses for nose. No one tastes. No one tastes. At the very end, once we've identified everything, everyone wants to go back and figure out why they thought hazelnuts were something else, or why they thought lemon blossom was actually lime blossom, or what have you. Then you can say, hey, everything on this table is safe to drink. This is something we used to do before COVID, where we probably didn't mind using and sharing the same glass. And then for white wine, same deal. So Granny Smith apple, yellow plum, pineapple, pear, hazelnut, kiwi, peach, grapefruit, butterscotch. Butterscotch is the easiest one. You don't have to do anything. You take a Werther's candy, you drop it in some white wine, and the next morning it just kind of turns sort of brown and funky, and it smells perfectly like big, buttery, butterscotchy Chardonnay. It's amazing like that. Grapefruit, papaya, cucumber, mint, cut grass, Meyer lemon, diesel, kerosene. Here's the deal. Because I may actually put a tiny little bit of diesel fuel in that white wine, on that glass, I would put a skull and crossbones, both on the bowl and on the thing, and I would put it off to its side. And before I set, the people that are doing the reference tasting, I would say, see that wine? That wine may have something poisonous in it. Don't drink it. So the general idea is no one puts any of these wines in their mouth. It's just aroma. Smelling each one of these individual esters through the aromatic confusion of wine. Does that make sense? Cool. What kind of red wine? I would do Peter Vella Burgundy. I think Mountain Burgundy was the one I used. Use your own. You can also use the Carlo Rossi jug wine. That seems to work pretty well. I think I've used like Paisano Red. Whatever smells as basic and uninteresting as possible, because it's all about taking a vinous wine, just a wine that smells like fermented grapes, and to play around with the esters and the ideas. Now, no matter how neutral the wine is, you always want to make sure that you leave the box of wine that you used on the table with fresh glasses, so at any given moment, someone can take the sample and use it as a reference to say, okay, that is the wine without any doctoring. This is so important. I tell people at the beginning of the reference tasting, take 5 minutes and learn that wine. Really understand it, which is weird. And first time any winemaker ever said take 5 minutes to understand a Peter Vella Chablis. But that's what I'm talking about. You gotta understand just what is available in that wine without the ads, because the ads are gonna be exactly what you need. Okay, so now we go to the third category. And this one, if you're not a winemaker, it gets a little more complicated, and you probably might have to send me a note and see if I can't send you some little bags of white powder that I'm sure the cops and the federal government will open and try to arrest us for. So faults. Again, these are wines that are generally not going to be put in mouth. In fact, I put them on a different table with a huge, large thing. Many of these wines have been doctored by toxic and or poisonous chemicals. Do not effing drink these wines. Don't put them in your mouth. Be very careful and start smelling them a ways away, because if you have a super palate or you have a very sensitive aroma, sticking your nose in a bunch of sulfur dioxide or sticking your nose trichloroanisole or TCA might not be the most pleasant thing. So I want you to doctor wines with Brettanomyces. So you have to buy Brettanomyces, which generally can only be procured through a wine lab. So you're going to, or if you're really lucky, find a really bready wine and use that to doctor the other wine. Probably not going to happen, but just buy any natural wine. I talk smack about natural wine. Trichloroanisole, TCA. So when we smell a cork, or we put a screw cap on the wine to keep it from being corked. When we say TCA, we mean that's what it smells like grandma's basement. You've all smelled TCA. If you've ever smelled a wet book that got dry again, you probably smell TCA. If you've ever been in your grandma's basement or opened an old trunk, you probably smell TCA. If you've ever opened a really old book, you've smelled TCA. I tend to smell it when I'm out, especially like if I'm playing golf and I'm walking down into a lower grassy area. Sometimes the TCA, I don't know whether it's probably just the water that's applied to the grass. Somehow it's basically a matter of a chlorine. It's sort of a dissociated chlorine molecule that actually smells really, really strong. In fact, the human nose can pick up TCA somewhere around 2 to 3 parts per trillion. That is 2 drops of water. Imagine putting 2 drops of dye in an Olympic-sized swimming pool and being able to stir it all up and go, that was definitely yellow dye. That's how strong TCA is. It's one of the most volatile aromatic compounds in the entire world. Human nose is extremely sensitive to it, which makes me wonder why. What was it in our evolutionary history that made it really important for human beings to smell chlorides and chlorides? I have no idea. Oxidized. This is really easy. You basically can leave a wine out for 4 or 5 days before the party, before the tasting, and let it oxidize until it smells. Otherwise, I might, the next one is volatile acidity, which is generally acetic acid or which is going to be basically vinegar. So a drop or 2 of white vinegar, it's all you need. That'll do great. Hydrogen sulfide. Well, you're going to have to probably find some hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs, and it can be a little kind of tarry, and it can express itself in different ways in wines. Pyrazine and green bell pepper. So easy. Take green bell pepper, chop it up, put it in some red wine, let it sit overnight, dump it, you're good. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Canned green bean. It's another fault that we use. Guess what? Little juice from a green bean can. It's so damn obvious. Only use tiny little bit of green bean juice and the green bell pepper, because some of these aromas, especially in the white wine, some of the stuff like almond and almond skin, maybe some of the nuttiness like hazelnuts. People get confused between the hazelnuts and the almond skin, and some of these aromas are just so delicate. And also lime versus lemon versus orange versus tangerine. Obviously, these are going to be tough ones to get. Canned asparagus, same way. Geranium. Really easy. Just go get a couple leaves off a geranium plant, chop them up. It's also incredibly aromatically powerful, so use a tiny little bit of geranium. Excess sulfur dioxide, so we're going to take a little extra SO2 and put it into one, so it smells kind of stingy, like you just struck a match. You get that big sulfur dioxide hit, but not so much. Be very gentle and delicate with your SO2. You don't want to, just in case you have an asthmatic or someone who has breathing troubles, SO2 can be a little bit problematic. Just a little pinch in that glass to give people an idea. That's what SO2 smells like. Yeast. I like to put just a little bit of baker's yeast in there and then sieve it out. Just give it a yeasty. When we talk about champagne, we talk a lot about yeast. Yeast would be beneficial probably in a champagne, but it would be considered a fault in white wine or red wine in general. And then mushroom or forest floor. Now, people will say, well, that's complexity. Well, some people like a mushroomy kind of composty. I'm using the English composty aroma, sort of an earthy sort of, what would you call it? I guess it would be sort of the smell of decay, but in an earthy, mushroomy way. Again, throw in a little bit of chanterelle mushroom, a little morel mushroom, or even some compost or some dirt, I guess. Earth, saline, if you want to use salt. Can you smell salt? I don't know, but you should check it out. And then I have my tasting samples. I have the wines by themselves in the box. So at any point, someone can take with their own glass, with their name on it, take a little bit of white wine, take a little red wine, and go, okay, I get it. That's what it tastes like and smells like. Is that cherry or is it that wine? Yeah, every red wine has a little bit of cherry character in it. So if the Peter Vella Burgundy that year was really damn good and it had some nice cherry aroma, at least you know what the cherry smells like in that wine. And then I want a residual sugar wine. We're going to add probably... my guess is probably add 5 grams to one sample and 10 grams to the other. So you can taste the wine by itself. You can taste the wine with a 5 gram per liter sugar add, and just weigh the sugar, see how many liters. Take a liter of wine, add 5 grams, boom, you got it. Add 10 grams to a liter, boom, you got it. Sometimes I buy 2 boxes for 20 people, and I usually have quite a bit of wine left over because for some reason after the tasting, no one wants to drink Peter Vella Chablis and Burgundy. But clean wines that show that expression. So you have wines doctored by residual sugar. So the regular wine, 5 gram add, 10 gram add, so people can really get, wow, now this wine is sweeter, that wine is really, really sweet. And then the last sample that I can really think of and that I want to talk about is acid. So you are going to add tartaric acid in granular form to the wine. And my suggestion is to probably add, so I would say Peter Vella Chablis is probably 3.8, and I would say Peter Vella Burgundy is probably 4.0 pH, maybe a little bit lower than that. And I want to try to get the wine in a perfect world. I would like 3.5, 3.25, and 3.1 pH. So the best way to do this is to pinch, stir, and sip and spit, because the acid is going to have some it is going to have some impact on your palate. And the highest acid add, I mean, if you taste a wine that has 10 grams of acid in it, it could leave a little bit of an impression. If it had 12 to 15 grams, it could actually harm your palate. So I want to get 5, 7, and 9 grams per liter, which would theoretically get us on a Peter Vella Chablis to about 3.5. You know, the regular wine's going to be about 3.8. Then the one with a little bit of acid will be about 3.5 pH, and then 3.25, and then 3.1. 3.1 will be plenty acidic enough to go, damn. And what you're going to also find is the residual sugar is going to make the residual, or the acid, as the acid goes up, pH goes down, that you're going to taste less sugar in the wine because the sugar is going to be buffering that acid in our palate. All right, so that's your reference tasting. So it's going to look like, I prefer to do it inside. Outside, there's wind, there's, you know, all these different aromas. I like it, you know, no potpourri, no scented candles, you know, no perfume. Tell the people who come to this tasting, just like Ann Noble, who kicked someone out of this $650 tasting for wearing perfume to her class. So make sure on the invitation people know to come clean and aroma neutral. So no perfume, no cologne, because, you know, if you're wearing perfume and cologne and going to a wine tasting everyone's talking smack about you. That's just rude. You know, if I can smell you, I'm sure I've said this before, but if I can smell you, dude, ma'am, kind of, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's desperate. Have you ever smelled someone wearing heavy cologne or perfume and think, even if it's one I like, even if it's, in fact, I used to really like a perfume that one of my like 9th grade girlfriends used to wear called Anais. You know, very floral, very, very terpene, very white floral. Until I got into a elevator one day. I had to go 35 floors in an elevator with a woman who had bathed in it, and I swear I almost lost my lunch. And it was disgusting. It was disgusting. And I find people who wear too much scent. I mean, if you're a 7th grade virgin and you want to wear a bunch of Axe body spray because you think it's going to get you laid, we know the truth, right? It's going to make people make fun of you. So please, 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 never smell. You know? I mean, whether you're going to a comic book convention, shower. You're around other people. If you're around other people drinking wine, we don't want to smell you. There's always one person at a tasting. And you know what? It's just really annoying. So you smell desperate. Stop it. Stop wearing, here's my deal, and I tell everyone I train in both restaurants and wine bars and everything else, come to work aroma neutral, and if you absolutely have to wear a scent to the point where no one can smell you unless they hug you. Remember hugs? Yeah, that was a long time ago. But what I'm saying really is that unless I'm in your physical presence, meaning we are either hugging or in the position that we could hug, I don't want to smell you. If I'm in your personal area and I get a little bit of aroma, I'm hoping it's something wonderful that I want to smell. But that's the key. And that was a long description of saying, don't let anyone wear cologne or perfume. No, you want to make sure everyone's there. And if you have about 20 people, they're going to come in, they're going to see a table with 40 or 50 glasses, basically all set up. It's going to take you 2 days to put this together. We charged people $125 for this, and we raised almost $3,000. Not only did we buy this service dog for an Army veteran for his PTSD, we ended up with enough money to buy another puppy for another veteran. So this is a fantastic way to raise money for all of the wonderful charities that need it right now. So you can always do it as a charity event, or specifically if you and your wine club wanted to do it, you wouldn't even have to charge them. But I think it's if people don't spend at least $50 on this tasting, I don't think they take it seriously enough. I have been told by almost every single person that's gone through the process of a reference tasting, including myself, if I ask myself, when did I become a taster? It's when I left John Buchenstein's class doing this reference tasting in Intro to Wine Evaluation at UC Davis. This will fundamentally change the way you look at wine, smell it, and you can do this with anything. You can do this with beer and different kinds of hops, different kinds of roasted malts, different kinds of ingredients that they would put in a beer. You could theoretically do it with Scotch, where you would, you could somehow influence the different neutral whiskeys to have different characters, smokiness, peatiness. I don't know how you would do that. But you could do it with silver tequila. Take a silver tequila, get some oak chips, oak the hell out of a tequila to make it taste like an añejo or reposado, and then taste through them to understand how different oak affects all these different spirits. So you got a lot of different options, a lot of different things you can do with this. But this idea of a reference tasting is absolutely important. And again, you're going to need this sheet. And if you are unable to see it on my Facebook, you can always email me at whagen, Hagen, @jwilkes.com, and I'm happy to send you my sheet. And somewhere in my computer, and I spent about a half an hour looking at it for it today, and I keep telling myself I need a week to clean out my computer and make it so I can find anything I need. Somewhere I have this cheat sheet from a wonderful sommelier named Gillian Balance. And if you know Gillian, she's just freaking awesome. I got some great stories about Gillian. She gave me her worksheet on exactly how to make every reference sample so they have the same aromatic intensity. I don't do that. I'm a chef that doesn't measure, so I cut stuff up, throw it in, smell it. But clearly, like vanilla extract smells really strong. Green bell pepper smells really, really strong. Werther's candy smells really, really strong. So you want to make sure that the stuff that's very aromatically elegant, that you throw a lot of it in there. And remember that you are going through, before you serve these wines, and running them through a sieve filter to remove as much of the particulate matter as you can. So there's no lemon skin in your lemon. There's no lemon flesh in your lemon if you can help it. There's no raspberries in your raspberry sample. It's just the liquid that was in contact with it. You take the particulate matter out, you take the fruit out, you're left with the wine. Yes, the wines are going to be discolored. That'll give your folks a little bit of hint. And if they have like 50 samples to match, always offer a prize for the person who gets the least right and for the person who gets the most right. I think that's really, really important to celebrate the people that are just learning, and again, to also celebrate the folks that are just nailing it out of the park. Out of this list, when we did this, happy to say my wife tied for, I think she got 42 out of 50, and that includes the faults. So she's got a woman's palate. What can you say? That's it for tonight. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I'm going to check real quick to see sort of what you guys got going on. Now, the question also is, does that increase your ability to love wine? No, this is just purely academic. So this is practice. This is nothing that we would necessarily, I'm not giving you this information so you can go to a tasting with your friends and annoy the heck out of them by saying that all the 130 things you can smell in every wine. It's for people who want to learn to professionally take a tasting note. And if they find a wine that has an aroma that they love, they can identify that aroma and tell the person at their wine store, I love wine that have sort of a raspberry jammy character, because once you learn to smell raspberries, you can identify them, and then you can use that as a tool to help you find better wine. Good. Yes. Karen says that's the French way. Yes. What kind of, yep, I would definitely say that the Peter Vella is definitely the wine to go. And Teresa, so nice to have you here. Ah, yes. One of the times is missing my days at Clopepi. Part of me agrees with you. Part of me loves being a sort of independent contractor and someone who's freed from the confines of the family business. But loving my time at the Miller family and loving my time at J. Wilkes so far. Just been all, but Clopepi is an amazing property. I was just talking about it. If you didn't see my Thursday Zoom with Will Costello and Ethan, who helps run a 3-star Michelin wine program, we talked a lot about Clopepi and just my memories of how what I learned there as far as AVAs in Santa Rita Hills. So thank you for saying that. Appreciate that. All right. Well, good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that, Phil. Phil, I do remember you being at that reference tasting, if I'm correct. And Ian enjoyed it. Thank you. Yeah, if you're chewing bubble gum, you should probably realize, if you walk into a tasting room chewing bubble gum, is it proper hospitality to ask the person not to take it out, but to say, hey, by the way, that bubblegum may influence your tasting, but I'm not saying to take it out. I'm just saying, if I was you and I was interested in evaluating the flavors and the quality of our wine, I probably wouldn't chew gum while I'm doing it. I think if you do that really carefully, I think you can get away with it. I really do. I don't know if the fires are out at Pence and JSV. I've been a little bit isolated here up in Santa Rita Hills, but even though the Pence Ranch and the Santa Rita Hills have had moments, the last thing I would ever do is wish anything but success and flourishing for anyone. So I certainly hope Pence Ranch, Blair, and his family and employees are safe. So, and same with the John Sebastiano Vineyard. So I guess yes, there is a fire going on. Well, Dawn enjoyed. Thank you. Appreciate that. As well as Ian and Kai. So stoked to see you again, my friend. I'm glad you're stopping by more often. Vincenzo and Santorini, which had an aroma described as acetone. Absolutely. So acetone, Denise, is a little bit of the ethyl acetate that comes out in a wine. So wine starts as wine and then moves to like having volatile acidity, and this is a gross generalization. Volatile acidity becomes ethyl acetate becomes acetic acid. So wine to acetic acid, wine to vinegar, what the Romans called the Roman wine disease, or the wine disease. That wine, vis-a-vis entropy, wants it to be in its most stable molecular state, and the most stable molecular state of wine is acetic acid. Sad but true. Cool. I hope you enjoyed that too. It looks like Michelle. I was talking about dal earlier, Michelle, but I was talking about DHAAL, the delicious Indian dish full of black lentils. So I'm going to be making dal, maybe even tonight. I think it's just DAAL. Question is, how can I eat dal without crispy, wonderful naan? Can't do carbs, but I want naan. So delicious. Maybe I'll just take more insulin. And the Edelmans are watching from Palos Verdes, my hometown when I grew up. That's awesome. And Nick, I hope, do you have a preference for grape variety? Yeah, I'd make Pinot Noir rosé all day if it wasn't so damn expensive. The problem is, how do you make an $18 rosé? Because I think rosé should be about $20, right, for a great rosé. The problem is, if you're going to make a rosé the way I make rosé, from fresh grapes, not as a byproduct from a bleed off of juice, making a $20 rosé, I'm losing $30 to $40 a bottle because it's not Pinot Noir. It's not macerated Pinot Noir. I can get $60, $70 for a bottle of Clopepi Pinot Noir, but I would never want to charge more than $20. Now, I could have made 20 cases and charged $50 a bottle for the rosé. We just thought that was disingenuous. So, but yeah, Grenache, Mourvèdre. I made a Mourvèdre rosé at Axis Mundi. It was absolutely delectable. So, can only make one rosé. I'm going to go off my prepared remarks and say Mourvèdre. I think Mourvèdre makes, Grenache makes the juiciest rosé. I think Pinot Noir makes the most complex rosé. But Mourvèdre is funky, fresh, bright, savory. It's amazing. So I'm just going to go straight to Mourvèdre. That's what I'm going to say. 10-tier grapes. Yeah, Nick is talking about grapes that actually have red flesh. Most grapes have no color on the interior of their flesh, but a few do. Most of the color compounds within grapes are between the exocarp and the mesocarp, and these vacuoles that contain massive amounts of phenolic and polyphenolic compounds. So that's absolutely true. There are grapes that, I think Alicante Boucher is one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Eddie Gray. Hope everything is good in the solar industry. Eddie Gray was a wine salesman 3 months ago. He's still a wine salesman, but he's moving into solar. So send Eddie Gray if you live in Los Angeles or the greater Los Angeles area and you're interested in solar. Let Eddie Gray know. He's not only a great salesperson, but he cares about what he sells, and he's a good friend. He also is a part owner of the Plate Tectonics, Tectonic Plate Winery or Brewery, excuse me, Pacific Plate Brewery in Los Angeles. And hope to be down in the LA area hanging out again soon. If I start talking too much about the metric system, I'm really gonna start getting sad. But thank you. Oh, and Ian, you failed National Rosé Day. That's okay. Because we don't have to pay our taxes until July 15th. That would probably mean that you can drink rosé all day, at least 2 weeks. Because of COVID, you can push your deadline for rosé. Tommy Schmitz adds, can you remind us of the Roman word for drinking for thought, but not overindulging? I always kind of called it, the Romans were really bad at that. The Greeks were better. The Greeks had what they called symposia. And then the Romans took symposia and turned it into, what did they call it? They called it the convivium. And just to let you know, the Greeks generally reclined on sort of like couches, and they would sort of sit and drink, and the musicians would come in and out, and the performers would come in and out, and they would drink mixed wine. And staying somewhat sober, I like to call it the Athenian level of intoxication. The Athenian level of intoxication was meaning that you could drink water mixed with wine for 4 hours, and at the end of that, you could stand up, give a political discourse, sing a song, recite a poem from memory, and not slur, not be untoward, not be politically incorrect, not be cruel or unusual. You would be a great man of letters and someone who could express a philosophical idea or something beautiful, and the conversation would continue. And very commonly at the end of the symposia, they would have a conversation to see if they could reach consensus, which some people would say was also part of the development of democracy. Now, the Romans, just to let you know, the easiest way to describe this is the convivium had a special room called the vomitorium. So it was kind of like about suck and blow, let's see how wasted we can get. I like the Greek ideal better. I like drinking for conversation, not drinking to obliterate. I don't have an incredibly horrible checkered past that I want to leave behind me and forget on a nightly basis, but I do like the feeling of having a glass or two of wine, having a fantastic conversation, getting home, not waking up at 3 a.m, being completely and totally dehydrated and wondering, what have I done to myself? The idea that honest and careful drinking, I guess would be a nice way of putting it, or to maintain a symposium, or to maintain an Athenian symposia level of intoxication. If there's an actual name for that, I could ask Dr. Patrick McGovern, who is the world's leading archaeologist of alcohol, and a buddy of mine, so he can always tell. Oh, someone talking about Domaine Tempier over there. Probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest rosé in the world. It's not the most expensive rosé in the world, but it certainly is delicious. And the Widgers are in the house. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Ian McKenzie was 10 when he watched the moon landing, so that's fantastic. And Milk Street. I got the Milk Street stuff. And looks like, hi honey, it's my wife. And if you haven't had either the J. Wilkes Rosé, we're about to restock the J. Wilkes tasting room. Got sold out of rosé over the weekend, but that doesn't mean that it's gone. We will continue to restock it, and I do know that we're going to be doing a little special on it just for you guys with a special promo code to let my boss know if you guys are not only watching but buying some wine, so I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to go cook some dinner and relax and do some night drinking, but thank you guys so much for spending some time with us. I hope this reference tasting was helpful for you. Again, if you need some of my notes or need anything else, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this 2 years from now on YouTube, remember the YouTube channel. We've got J. Wilkes Wines YouTube as well as Miller Family Wines YouTube. So all these shows, every single show we've done except one, I think, is lives over on YouTube. Go over there and follow us and like us and all that stuff. I'm sure if I was a 14-year-old girl, I'd know a little bit better how to encourage you to do that. But hey, follow us and join, and we appreciate it. So anyways, I appreciate you guys being from here. Wednesday, what are we doing? I've got my, where is my schedule? I know that Friday we're doing, Wednesday we are doing something Wednesday I'm going to be talking about being a server as COVID is in some places allowing folks to start eating in restaurants again. I know that some of my server friends are going to be getting back into the restaurant, and more than ever, they need to figure out how to make more tips. So on Wednesday, we're going to be talking to servers and restaurant culture. Even if you're not a server or a restaurant person, come in. We're going to be talking a lot about what restaurant service should look like. And I'm just going to give you guys 15 or 20 minutes on what I think is the best way to give yourself a $20,000 a year raise as a server. It's a simple way to do it, something that Master Sommelier Michael Jordan taught me. And I'm going to teach servers how to make an extra 20 grand a year. So I hope you guys come in for that. And even if you're not a server, we'll be talking a little bit about restaurant wine culture, restaurant wine lists, and how to get the best out of those restaurant wine lists. So I hope you guys enjoyed day drinking today, and go out there, as always, find someone in your family, find someone in your community, find someone maybe that's a little bit distant from you, but maybe in your neighborhood. Reach out to them, make sure that they're safe, encourage best practices. We're seeing COVID pop its ugly head up again, and we're not even through the first wave. So this is still the first wave. Wear a damn mask, wash your damn hands, be careful of the people around you, and especially if you have contact with the elderly, doctors, nurses, first responders. Remember that there are certainly first responders out there that are risking their life in a culture where they might not feel loved, but they're still getting up every day and doing their job. So make sure, if you know a good cop, tell them they're a good cop and we appreciate them. And remember that Black Lives Matter. Thanks so much for coming in tonight, guys. Take care of yourself, be safe, and let's change this world for better. See you guys. Bye.